Hey gang, it's JC and this is your Daily Dose for Tuesday, September 14th, 2010, a cooperative venture with Mind Active in beautiful downtown Brentwood. Archives top of the page, archives of eye candy right below this frame. You can get us on your mobile phone right now. Dave Murray's weather forecast, audio on iTunes, the works. As we roll on with our 15-month paid vacation, the Cardinals are toast. I told you that Saturday when they lost that extra inning ball game to Atlanta. Last night, Mike Shannon actually said the words. He said, well, you know, the Redbirds are going to have a lot to say about which teams make the playoffs. An obvious reference to both San Diego and the Colorado Rockies that are coming into town here in the next few weeks. But that's it. The Cardinals have been reduced now to a spoiler role. And that's it on the 2010 season. A lot more questions than answers about your 2010 Cardinals. We'll talk about that some other time. But who would have guessed that in September of 2010, we would be looking to the St. Louis Rams for our local sports excitement? How about that? All right, when you think of France, just think of French couples just running around, girls in negligees, whispering little French sexy phrases to one another, and champagne corks popping around and them just doing it like 18 hours a day. Well, more than 3/4 of French couples say they have bad sex lives. Well, that's the French, always imitating America. Survey says 40% of Republicans watch Fox News regularly. The other 60% would, but they don't have TV monitors in public restroom stalls. Sarah Palin and Arnold Schwarzenegger are having a little tit. No, not a little tit, a tiff. Yeah, Freudian slip there. They're fighting with one another. They're feuding. And this should be an interesting fight between Arnold Schwarzenegger and Sarah Palin because, I mean, well, one of them is a strong-jawed roughneck with, you know, sort of a weak command of the English language. And the other one is Arnold Schwarzenegger. A woman walks into a Walgreens in Moorhead, Minnesota over the weekend wearing only a thong, a small green towel, and whipped cream. She said she was trying to get people to open their minds and not conform to society. She said this, by the way, to the police who were called to haul her away for indecent exposure. Well, when you got your pop stars wearing meat, what do you expect? Told you about this a month ago. Facebook people not thinking. A burglary ring robbed 50 houses last month in Nashua, New Hampshire by checking Facebook to see when people weren't home. Hello, dumbasses! Sofia Vergara, sort of the flavor of the month, and it's a good flavor too, by the way. ABC's Modern Family is her show. 34 double Ds are her act. She looks good, folks. When she was younger, she wanted to get breast reduction surgery. Her mother said, God will punish you. So Sophia did not do it. God did not punish her. And moral of the story, if you got big boobs, listen to your mother. You're now never more than 115 miles away from the nearest McDonald's. 13,000 of them in the lower 48. I have no joke for that. Oprah kicked off her 25th and final year on television yesterday. She's taking the entire studio audience to Australia. The women got very, very excited about it until she found out that she's leaving them there. They got to get back on their own. That Paul Simon song, though, was pretty cool. At the end of the show, he was singing to Oprah and she was crying. Now, as a guy, you find yourself saying, hey, wait a minute, I'm watching Oprah. Then you're like, hey, I'm watching Oprah by myself. And wait a minute, I'm like getting a little tear in my eye from this. And then you run down the hall and you just start chewing on a raw steak, trying to get your mojo back. All right, I've been out of the American workforce now for about 11 months. But boy, you want to find some weird people, radio stations. And you could probably say that about your office too. Here are 5 coworkers you should not become friends with. 5 coworkers you should not become friends with. Number 1, the office do-gooder. Yeah, because you're going to end up helping out with every canned food drive and every office birthday party. It'll affect your work. You're going to get distracted. Dumb idea. Number 2, the pessimist. Well, you know, first of all, that's depressing to be around a person like that. But then you got to worry about the boss too. Because if you're hanging out with the person with the bad attitude, the boss might get the idea that you also have a bad attitude. Number 3, the weirdo. Well, what did I say about radio stations? That one I have to skip. You're on your own. Number 4, the office gossip. Oh, yes, Because if they're telling you something, some little private tidbit of information about somebody down the hall, I guarantee it that they're going to be doing the same thing about you to somebody else. Number 5, the person who brings donuts every day but doesn't eat any. Something weird going on there. Let's also remember that Dexter brings donuts into the police station every day, and he's a serial killer. Learn. All right, if you want something good to eat this weekend, my buddy Trish Gazelle. Hello, Trish. How's your trash? Tells us about the St. Raymond's Annual Festival coming up Saturday and Sunday down there at 931 Lebanon Drive, south edge of downtown in St. Louis. Eat yourself some tabbouleh and some grape leaves and stuff like that, and expand your culinary palate and be adventuresome and all that. You want information? 621-0056. Again, St. Raymond's all weekend long, the annual Lebanese Fest. I miss Johnny Carson. I've said this a million times. People always say, JC, you're into this interview thing. If you could interview somebody, your ideal interview, who would it be? It's too late. They're both dead. One is Curly Howard from the Three Stooges. I think it would have been fascinating to talk to this guy. And the other one is Johnny Carson. He's just a fascinating guy. Always was. And without further ado, let's do a little Karnak here. You're going to have to picture me with a giant soothsayer hat on, because my soothsayer hat's in the cleaners. All right, here we go. These questions have been kept in a mayonnaise jar on the porch of Funkawagnall since noon today. Nobody knows the... See, I'm doing Ed McMahon here, right off the top of my head. It's just emblazoned into my skull. All right. Tom Brady, Oscar the Grouch, and Paris Hilton. Then they would go Tom Brady, Oscar the Grouch, and Paris Hilton. All right, there we go. See? That never happened to Johnny. He never blew the thing right out of his hand. Yeah, there we go. Tom Brady, Oscar the Grouch, and Paris Hilton. Name someone who was in a crash, someone who lives in the trash, and someone who put a stash of hash in her gash. Karnak! The amazing, the magnificent. I mentioned Johnny Carson because we're going to talk about Morgan Fairchild here today on Celebrity Tuesday. For a long time, most of the 80s, good chunk of the 90s, Morgan Fairchild was sort of your generic, plain label, hot number in this country. You were telling a joke or you needed a punchline, for somebody who was hot stuff, it would be Morgan Fairchild. Now, I met her a couple of times. She came to St. Louis in 1988. She was doing something at the Muni, and I had a chance to interview her over at the Chase Park Plaza. But I had run into her in Buffalo back in 1983 because, and you've heard this story a million times, they shot the movie The Natural with Barry Levinson directing and Robert Redford, people like that in Buffalo, New York, and I actually worked for the film company, was there pretty much every day when they were making the movie, and Morgan Fairchild was always in town because she was boinking the chief cinematographer for the movie. When I'm watching her, all I'm saying is I'm just looking right at her thinking to myself, man, you boinked Johnny Carson, you funked Johnny Carson. See, but that's the difference between me and you. She was very nice, measured. You could have a little fun with her, Her sister was along on the trip for companionship, and she was standing behind me during the interview, and I brought up a movie called Pink Hotel. This is one of these adolescent boner movies out of Canada that shows up about 4 o'clock in the morning on Spanktivision or Skinamax or one of those pay cable channels. And when I brought up Pink Hotel, her sister just sort of went, oh, like she was just mortified that she was in the movie, and even more so that I brought it up. So I'm getting the good part now. So now we're finished with the interview. Miss Fairchild, would you mind posing for a picture with me? Sure, fine. Now this is right after she had her boob job, and so she was wearing this loose knit top with no bra. So I get up, stand next to her, get ready to take the picture. I put my arm around her, but that's when you realize she's like that narrow. Her back was like, she's tiny. So I put my arm around her. My hand goes completely around her and lands square on her right boob. Now I just sort of pull back, and she looks at me like, nah, it was an accident, I know. And there was like this awkward moment. So now it's like, all right, let's take the picture now. Put my arm, I did it again. And we just pretended like it never happened. But Morgan Fairchild, a lot of fun. By the way, we're going to run that picture here on this website in a couple of days. I don't do a lot of the celebrity birthdays anymore, but I do want to mention Sam Neill, who is 63 today. Sam Neill, most people just know him from Jurassic Park, but I want you to check out a movie called The Dish. This is a great movie about the 1969 moon landing and how a tiny little hamlet in Australia was instrumental in the ability of those television pictures of Neil Armstrong walking on the moon to be televised worldwide. It is a wonderful movie. Sam Neill is great in it. There's other people you'll recognize. It's a wonderful movie. The Dish is the name of it. Go check it out. It was on this date in 1814 the words to our national anthem were written. You know, back in the 60s, especially because of the big Polish population in Chicago, and you know, things weren't politically correct back. There were a lot of Polak jokes going around. My dad always told Polak jokes. And this would have given him the opportunity to tell one of his favorites. He'd say, you know, did you know the national anthem was written by a Polak? No, Dad. Yeah, Francis Scott-Key. See? It's all starting to make sense to you now, isn't it? JC's Eye Candy. These guys from AutoTuneTheNews.com are hilarious. They can take any speech, any news conference, any boring soundbite and turn it into a song. So there's this robbery on a street in Kansas City a couple of weeks ago, and this crazy bystander starts giving this ridiculous account of what happened to a television reporter, and they make it into a song. It's hilarious. Please check it out on Eye Candy right below you here today. JC's Video Village, back to 1997. Wayne Newton in Las Vegas. The Wayback Machine, a great piece about Alan Barklage, the helicopter traffic reporter who did our traffic for many years. The old school photo today is back to 1989 and the Batman junket, and Kim Basinger and a lovely picture of her. Tomorrow, the country's top earning comedians. This will depress the hell out of you. You find out how much Dane Cook is making. And 5 products you should always buy generic, and 5 that you shouldn't buy generic versions of. That's it. JC's Daily Dose for Tuesday, September 14th, 2010. A cooperative venture with Mind Active in beautiful downtown Brentwood. In the meantime, we've beaten this one to death. Have a good one. See you later. Bye.